Hi, I'm Jayne from Poppy Patchwork, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make Doris's Delight quilt block. I've drawn the block out in my quilt block notebook, and I've written out all the measurements. In this book you will get lots of blank pages, and I find it really useful for calculating the size of my pieces for the block. The odd and even quilt block notebooks are available to buy from Amazon. Scan the QR code to visit Amazon. I've just released my new book, The Quilter's Quick Reference Guide, with your favourite cutting charts and step-by-step instructions. The cutting charts include half square triangles, quarter square triangles, split square triangles, flying geese, corner squares, economy squares, half rectangle triangles and cat's cradle. Plus step-by-step instructions for making and trimming your units. Buy your copy today. Scan this QR code or click the link in the description. Now, let's get quilting. So the first thing we're going to do is make the centerpiece, which is the square in a square block or the corner square block. And for this, we're going to need the small square in A and the smaller squares in B. The other pieces we'll just put to one side. Now we're going to start by drawing a diagonal line on the wrong side of these small squares. So to make a corner square unit, you take one of these with the diagonal line drawn on it, you place it right sides together and you pop it in one of the corners, and the diagonal line needs to run from the two centre points on the larger square. So I'm going to pin this in place. And then I'm going to put another one of these in the opposite corner, and the diagonal line needs to run from the centre of the sides of the larger square. And again, I'll pop a pin in that to keep it in place. Now when I take it over to the sewing machine, I'm going to sew on top of the drawn line. Now I'm going to remove the pins. And I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch away from the drawn line towards this corner out here. I'm going to do that on both sides. And now I'm going to press. So I'm going to start by setting the seams, and then I'm going to press to the small triangles. And now we're going to pin the other squares in the opposite corners, the remaining corners. And once again, that diagonal line needs to run from the centre of the two sides, and it will cross what we've already sewn. Now again, I'm going to pin these in place and repeat in the final corner. Now when I take it to the sewing machine, I'm going to sew on top of the line although what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to sew a smidge away from the line, maybe a thread width away from the line here, just a tiny little bit towards this corner, and that will help when this piece folds back over. I'm going to take that over to the sewing machine now and sew on top of the line. Once again, I'm going to remove the pins and then cut a 1/4 inch away from that seam. And now I'm going to give this a press. So I'll set the seams and then press towards the small triangle. So that's the centre piece done. I'm going to put that to one side and we're going to start making the half square triangles. So for this, we're going to need the large squares. And I'm going to draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of one of the I'm going to draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of 2 of the fabrics, and you can choose which fabric you want to draw it on, usually the lightest. And now I'm going to pin it right sides together with the other fabric. So I'm going to take that to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam on both sides of the drawn line. I'm now going to remove the pins and then cut along the drawn line. Now I'm going to trim these half square triangles, and my preferred method is to use the 6.5 inch triangle square up ruler. Now you'll need to trim these to size using your preferred method, and if you want to right mouse click on the link above, it will take you to my video on how to trim half square triangles with a standard ruler. So now I'm going to press these. And I'm going to press them towards the darker fabric. I'm going to clip the dog ears off and then I'll put these to one side. So now we're going to make the half rectangle triangles, and for this you're going to need the rectangle pieces in fabrics A and fabric C. Now on the back of the lighter fabrics I'm going to draw a diagonal line, and the first diagonal line I'm going to draw is from the top right corner to the bottom left corner. And I'm going to do this on 2 of them. And then I'm going to draw the diagonal line in the opposite direction on the other 2. So that will be from the top left to the bottom right. And this is so that we can get right slanting half rectangle triangles and left slanting half rectangle triangles. So now we're going to put them right sides together with the darker fabrics. So to do this, we're going to line one of the corners in one corner and the other corner down here in the opposite corner. So it's a little bit different to half square triangles. We're making half rectangle triangles, and this is the process for that. I'm now going to pop a pin to secure this. I'm going to repeat that with all the pieces. So those were both in the same direction, and these will be different directions. So I'm going to take these to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch away from the line on both sides of the line. I'm now going to remove the pins. And then cut along the drawn line. And now I'm going to press these. So I'm going to set the seams and I'm going to press them open. So now we'll have 4 left facing and 4 right facing. So we should end up making units that look like this. So I'm now going to trim my half rectangle triangles, and I'm going to refer to my cutting chart on how to do this. I'm just going to move these out of the way and show you the ruler. So on the ruler I've marked the lines here. Now that's the unfinished size of the rectangle that we need, and I've also marked the reference points. So what we're going to do is we're going to place the half rectangle triangle underneath the ruler, and we're going to make sure that these reference points here lie on the diagonal line, and we're also then going to make sure that when we cut just move these out of the way. When we cut up the side and along the top, that there's still fabric underneath this finished size. So there's not a lot to cut off, but I've put it on the rotating mat so that I can easily maneuver the piece underneath the ruler without dislodging it. So I've laid everything in place. I'm now going to cut up one side and along the top. Now going to rotate this around, and now I'm going to line the bottom and left edges as well as those reference points, and then I'm going to cut up and along the top. So that has now been trimmed to the unfinished size. So I'm going to repeat that again. And so obviously we have left and right slanting pieces, and at the minute we are working on these pieces. These go from the top left to the bottom right. So I'm going to line it all up again. There's just a little bit more wiggle room on this one, interestingly. So let's give this a cut. And now for the pieces that are going in the opposite direction, I'm just going to flip my ruler over and I'm going to repeat the process. Now this is where we really need the board, I think.
To work this out. That's it.
So I marked the ruler with a Sharpie pen, and I'm going to be able to remove that easily with some nail varnish remover. So now that all those pieces have been trimmed, we're ready for block layout. So I've laid these in block layout, and now I'm going to join the half rectangle triangles together. And I just wanted to point out that when we make these half rectangle triangles, this diagonal seam does not go into the corner. It's just offset by 1/4 of an inch, and that is what we want because we need that 1/4 of an inch to make sure that we have a lovely point. So I'm going to pin these together now. We press the seams open, so we need to make sure that the pin goes through the seam so that we can match these points up. So I'm going to take those over to the sewing machine and sew with a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm now going to give those seams a press, and I'm going to press the seams open. I'm just going to have a look at these to make sure they're okay. That one's a good one. That one's not bad. These two don't look as good, so I'm going to unpick these and try again to get the point a bit better than that. Okay, so I'm happier with both of those. So now I'm going to put everything back into block layout. And so now I'm going to sew these together in a traditional 9 patch. I'm going to sew these in pairs and then pop these on the bottom of the columns. Now on this one we need to position the point. So if you want to right mouse click on the link above, it will take you to my video on how to position points. So I'm going to take those over to the sewing machine and sew with a 1/4 inch seam. Before I pin these bottom pieces on, I'm just going to press the seams open. So I'm going to pop it all back into block layout. And now I'm going to pin the bottom pieces in place. So I'm going to take that back over to the sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch seam. And I'm now going to press these seams open again. So I'm going to sew this seam to the centre seam and then this piece to this piece. Now I'm just going to go and grab or swap my pins over again. So I'm going to take these over to the sewing machine and sew with a 1/4 inch seam. So I've pressed the seams open for a flatter finish and I've given the block a good press. So congratulations, you have made Doris's Delight quilt block. I hope you've enjoyed these videos and thank you very much for all your support by downloading my patterns and buying my books. Bye for now and happy quilting!